Hello YouTube. In today's episode we're going to go off the beaten path for this channel and we're going to do a tutorial on TypeScript development. Now if you're not familiar with TypeScript, TypeScript is a programming language for which you write code and then it is compiled into JavaScript. The advantage of writing in TypeScript is that TypeScript is a much more familiar experience to people who've programmed in Java or C#, as TypeScript has a lot more in the way of static typing and safe code and really all the things that you're familiar with. If you've ever had to do any large projects in JavaScript, you'd find that JavaScript doesn't have very good object-oriented programming capability, and there are some problems and quirks with Java that don't make it especially ideal for large projects. But that's where TypeScript swoops in. So to create a TypeScript project in Visual Studio for an HTML form, you'd have to get an extension. Fortunately, I have that extension. I will provide a link in the description to where you can get it. It is in fact compatible with Visual Studio 2017 Community Edition. So I'm going to add a new project to this solution. Add new project. And this of course pops up. Now because I have TypeScript support installed, I can just go to here and I have HTML application with TypeScript. Now I can call this first TypeScript application. Press enter. Now, because we're using Visual Studio 2017, it will warn us that our TypeScript version may be off, because the template uses an older version of TypeScript. It says first TypeScript application specifies TypeScript version 2.1, but a matching compiler was not found. Would you like us to update your project to use TypeScript 3.0? Now there is a solution to this. You could just install the compiler for version 2.1, but as I found, it doesn't actually matter. TypeScript 3.0 works just fine. So I always say yes right here. Alright, so while that configures itself, let's see if we can, so here is app.ts. TS stands for TypeScript. If we look at the HTML file, index.html, right here, we can see that there is a script tag which references an app.js. App.js is the code that will automatically be generated at runtime, which is the converted TypeScript to JavaScript code. You needn't be worried about what the outputted JavaScript will look like because, well, you'll be doing work in TypeScript, which is pretty convenient. So let's look at the TypeScript code. So this template provides us with with code that gets us on the right path. Now, what we might be used to is the concept of a main method, and to make it easier in this tutorial, I'm going to program that in. As you can see though, we have a class named greeter, and greeter is loaded down here with a constructor, new greeter, L stands for element, variable L is equal to document.getElementById, content, var greeter equals new, whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename greeter to application, and I'm going to rename it down here to application. And what more I will do is I will have a main method right here. Now by default what this would do is just do some time. We're going to make it easier on ourselves make it more familiar to people who are not necessarily used to the idea of programming in TypeScript. There are some differences, but it is also very similar to JavaScript and C#. Excuse me, not JavaScript, I meant Java. So we can create, so as you can see, it has a notification telling us that we are trying to put this into the constructor, and we don't have a constructor that has that many arguments. So we can create a constructor. We'll call it, well, so one of the differences in TypeScript is that when you create a constructor, it doesn't actually have to be named what the class is named. You just use the keyword constructor, and you do it like that. We can specify right here. We want a parameter. We can do it of type any, and that would work. But the advantage of TypeScript is you can specifically state what you want. So let's go with HTML element. Now that's great and all, but we're also calling what appears to be the main method. So we can say main right here. Oh, whoops. There we go. And we got ourselves a main method. We can specify a return type for the main method by going like this. Because the thing about TypeScript is that you can go without return types, but it's best to specify. It's because you have that option. You don't necessarily have that option with pretty weak languages. This one gives you that option. So we can say main and it returns void, which is neat. Of course, we're used to main being a static method. So let's continue on. Let's say, let's get rid of greeter and main. We'll get rid of these, and we'll just go with a static main, and we'll say it takes an element of type HTML element, and then we'll make it return void, and that's main. And then we can go underneath and we can say application dot main, and then we can put L in there. And I like this because it's much more reminiscent of how one programs in Java or in C#. So we've got our main method, and it returns void, and of course it's static, and we can make other stuff in here static as well. Now, as you've been seeing, we put the identifier before the identifier's type. That's going to be something you're gonna have to get used to, and the same is true for this right here. All right, so let's see if we can make an object. Let's make another class that we can make an object of. So we can right click on first TypeScript application, add, whoops, okay, that's weird. Any moment now. Okay, TypeScript file, and we'll call this person, right? That seems like a great idea. Person.ts. So person.ts, it's going to be a class. It's going to be about the idea of a person, and then we can make objects of this person. So person, let's say person has a couple of characteristics, and of course these characteristics are going to be private because that's a very convenient thing you can do in object-oriented programming. So let's give this a few characteristics. This person, a few characteristics, so we can have name of type string, of course. We can have private. Let's have age. That'll be of type number. You thought I was going to say integer, but no, it's not quite like that. Could I do int? No, but we can do. So we can do things like that. That's interesting. But no, let's not do that. Let's just say number. I'm pretty sure if we hover over all JavaScript numbers are 64-bit floating point numbers. So as you can see, there is a little bit of a limitation based off of what JavaScript supports. Because this is a language that's supposed to compile right into JavaScript code. So we got this. We got private name and then private age, and one is of type string, the other is of type number. Let's create a constructor so we can load these things in. And we're going to have it supply us with a name of type string and a age of type number. And then we can say this dot name is equal to name, and then we can say this dot age is equal to age. There we go. So we got that. It's pretty nice. And we can make some setters and getters. So we can say, how about we'll say get name is equal to, or is of type, excuse me, it's of type string. Return this dot name. Okay, that's neat. We can also do get age, and we can have it return a number. There we go. We can go further. We can make setters now. We can go set name is equal to, oh, it's of type void, but we want to have an argument of type string. So we want to say name of type string this dot name. As you can see, I did not specify return type for this set age, but it automatically assumes that it's of type void, as you can see there. But we're going to make it easier on ourselves and specify that every time. At least it's easier on, it makes our code a little more readable. We don't have to assume what it is because we've specifically identified it as much. So we can go back to app.ts. We'll create an object of person. We'll call this Dylan. I don't know who Dylan is, but we'll say Dylan. And we're going to create a new person called, well, let's see, we can, as you can see, our arguments are appearing there. It's very nice. And let's say that Dylan is 24 years old. I don't know who Dylan is, but we'll just assume. As you can see, this is a little weird. It's not working quite how you'd expect it. So you're like, oh no, whatever happened? So we might have to, instead, as you can see, it's not fully like the Java-like syntax, as you can see. So we'd probably have to go var Dylan equals new person. And that works. So we can't exactly say person Dylan. That wouldn't quite work. Although we might be able to say Dylan is of type person equals new person. Except no, that doesn't work either. Unused label. That works. So as you can see, if you're going to, for instance, if you're going to create a variable where you're specifying the type and then it's going to be of an object type, if you want to be really particular about how you want it, this is how you do it. Otherwise, you could say var Dylan, I'm going to do Dylan2 is equal to new person. And we'll say, let's say this is Dylan who is 23 instead. So if we hover over where it says Dylan it knows it's of type person. Whereas this Dylan up here didn't have to guess what type it was based off of this part, because we set it right here. So we said var Dylan person. So var is the keyword for establishing the variables. It's used down here, and it's used here. It's used here. You'll find that it'll probably be used most of the time. What's another thing we can do? So app.ts is the loading point. As you can see, it's relevant to this. When app.js is started, program runs. This code will be compiled into app.js. We'll be back next time. How about that? We'll be back next time, and we'll talk much more about creating applications in TypeScript, writing in TypeScript, all that basic stuff. We'll talk about this next time. Later.